Welcome to Not Departing Ordinary, where we're going to discuss extraordinary things that people are doing. And we have a very special guest today. Mahna, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. My name is Mahna Ghafori, and I feel very honored and grateful to be here today. My story in sort of a nutshell, I am a past tech consultant from the Washington, D.C. area, turned travel photographer in Southern California, and feeling very grateful to be living this life. And my mission is to inspire my audience to live their most extraordinary lives. And yeah.
Love it. So let's jump in and talk about why you got into travel photography and your journey so far.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, it starts with my whole life. I was sort of just like raised in this box, like this corporate molds from the Washington, D.C. area of like, go to school, do the right thing, get good grades, study hard. And so I did that, exactly that, like went to Virginia Tech, got a degree in data science, immediately started working at a Big Four tech consulting firm after graduating. And that first day of walking into the office, like immediately walking in and just like nothing clicked, like it just felt off. And my soul, like my heart was like, there's no way this is it. Like you're not meant to be doing this the rest of your life. Like when you get that feeling and when it's like so clear. And I remember just like talking to mentors and people around me and like managers and stuff in the job and in the DC area and being like, is this how it's supposed to feel? Is this going to be the rest of my life? And they would just be like, yep, welcome to adulthood. Welcome to the grind. Another day, another whatever. Like that would just be like the energy of the area. Just put your head down, grind, get through it until retirement. And wow, every part of me was like, no, there's no way this is it. And so I was going through the motions, but just like felt just this wasn't it. Did it for a couple of years, commuting 4 hours a day, 2 hours each way, each day from Northern Virginia into Washington, D.C. And all of that led until my breakdown and breakthrough moment. So I was basically sitting in my car, commuting to the office, just like I did every other day. And I look in the rearview mirror, and the woman in the car behind me was me in 40 years. Like she looked exactly like me, but like aged and just her whole life and dreams and passions and like youth and everything gone. And that shook me to my core. I broke down, started crying, and I was like, I have to make a change in my life right now, or I'll be stuck doing this for the rest of my life. And so then after that, it's sort of like when you start to look for a sign, when you're finally open for it, then something appears to guide you to the next step.
Totally.
And that's when I was just like on my Explore feed on Instagram, and I came across a influencer travel couple, Marie Faye and Jake Snow.
They're so awesome.
Yeah, I love them. And so I was like, looked at their page and I was like, whoa, they're traveling the world, they're getting paid, they get to have an impact. Like, that is so cool. How can I do that? And so I dove into their story, like bought their presets, started learning as much as I could about how they got to where they were. And I think they had like a free download or a mini course or something I enrolled in. And that inspired me to make my own anonymous Instagram page and just started like posting all of my old travel photos, editing photos with their presets that like now they're still on my page and they're so bad. That was posting them and I remember like when I was in my corporate like office, was still commuting and stuff, I would like go to the bathroom or like during my lunch breaks, like post these captions like literally from the stall. Like I was so sad and desperate to be like, oh, your heart, like chase your dreams, like all these things. And they were like cries to help for like myself, but also trying to reach anyone else who maybe felt the same way.
Yeah.
And it also like led for me to be more vulnerable and just like share openly because it was anonymous and I was so scared of what people from the DC area would think.
Yeah.
And so anyways, I was doing that for a couple of years and then I was like, okay, how can I change my state? How can I make a change? I read The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss and decided to quite literally change my state.
Like the state, no good. Next.
Yeah. Yes. And so packed up my life, moved just what fit in my car from Virginia to Colorado. And then COVID hit. And I was like, what the heck? I'm in this new place. I'm in this new place. I came here with a dream. I want to explore. Like, how am I supposed to chase my dream if the whole world is on lockdown?
Yeah, you can't go anywhere. How are you gonna chase anything?
Yeah, exactly. I was so like sad and hurt. And then I was like, okay. And something that's come up for me as a theme throughout like each chapter of my life is when I'm finding myself facing sort of that like fear brain discomfort versus like where my heart wants to lead me to, is really trying to silence that fear brain and lean into the heart and what the heart's trying to say. And I was like, okay, what can be the lesson from this? How can I provide value and step up and still chase my dream despite everything that's going on? Yeah. And so in this sort of like state of fear and confusion and lockdown, I was like, well, I'm not a doctor or nurse or anything, but I can provide like inspiration and positivity and value to the world in that way through my travel photography. So that's exactly what I started doing, and also found Tony Robbins events during that time. He did his first, so he used to only do in-person stuff, but then he started doing virtual events during COVID.
Wow.
And so that helped me face sort of my mindset and my limiting beliefs and how I was getting in my own way and holding myself back.
That is so prevalent in content creation. You don't realize it.
Yes.
How much you kind of sabotage yourself or like make yourself small.
Exactly. It's just us getting in our own way with these limiting beliefs that we don't even realize, but are like ingrained in us from our childhoods or from where we grew up or what we believe is possible for us. And so once I started to face and address those, so during COVID, I was still working my corporate job. So still like working just remotely. So still working 8 hours a day. And then like after that, working on my content creation, photography, business, practicing, trying to get better. And that's where like people look at it from social media and they're like, oh, you're so lucky. And I'm like,
yeah, if you only knew the little sleep I'm getting.
There were so many sacrifices of like chasing your dream and pursuing something that's extraordinary or like out of sort of the norm or the calling that's on your heart. And so after I lived in Colorado for a year, I felt really called to move to Hawaii.
Ooh. And how did Hawaii come up?
It was always my dream.
Okay.
I always dreamed of just traveling there.
Yeah.
And had planned a trip for March of 2020, and it was canceled.
Yes.
And then I went for the first time at the end of 2020. So it was really special, like getting to go there during COVID, because it was basically only locals, like no people, getting to experience the magic of the islands, and also learning that my name Mahna means life force in like Polynesian Hawaiian, which is one of the most like powerful words for them. And I really feel that like the universe like led me there, like just the energy, the mana of the land was so powerful and so potent. I was like, I feel like I belong here.
Beautiful.
And then that's what led me to ultimately moved there the next year, and Hawaii was just so transformational for me in deciding ultimately, like again, I came to another decision point of I have this corporate job and it sort of felt like corporate or golden handcuffs of like I have this income and I have this stability, but I also have this dream, and I was starting to get more work for the content creation like with different brands, but I didn't have the time to commit to both. I again felt that I was at this decision point. I was like, oh my gosh, like what do I do? This is so scary. I would talk to the people around me, like my ex-boyfriend at the time and like my parents, my family would be like, what do I do? They'd be like, like stay in your corporate job. Like, are you crazy?
Safe. Like, it's safe.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all out of like love and wanting me to be safe. And I was like, I really feel like I have to go for it and just like give it a shot. And so I decided to do sort of an in-between, do an unpaid leave of absence from my corporate job and commit 5 months of the summer to give content creation my all. And then at the end of the summer, that's when an opportunity came through with Chase and United. And it was basically set to replace my corporate income for the remainder of the year.
Wow.
And it felt like my side. I was like, this is it. Like, I have to go for it. And now I've been having my own business, living this dream for 2.5 years, and I feel very, very grateful. And now I'm in California as well. I again felt led to come here to the City of Angels And yeah.
What called you to LA?
Yeah, so the Tony Robbins events that I was going to, they started off virtual and then in the last couple of years became in person. So at the end of 2022, so after living in Hawaii, I decided to do a world trip where I didn't have a lease anywhere.
Awesome.
And I was just traveling full time, like South America, North America, Europe, Asia, Australia, and I like love that freedom of it, but really felt, okay, like what's my purpose? And also I need some grounding.
Yes, totally get that.
And at the last Tony Robbins event that I went to at the end of 2022, I started to meet so many people who were like motivational speakers in LA, and they had podcasts in LA, and they had like courses that they were making an impact on people's lives with in LA. And it was like, again, I can't ignore this.
Yeah.
It just kept popping up. And it was also at the same time that a lot of protests were happening in Iran with like women fighting for a voice and fighting for freedom. And I was like, I'm here at a parallel with ultimate freedom, and I have a platform and I have a voice. How can I use this to make an impact? And then I met a friend, Amanda, who's my roommate now, at a yoga and freediving retreat. She's like, I just moved to LA and I have a second bedroom if you want to move in with me. I was like, yeah.
How can I say no?
So she became my LA angel, and then packed up my car, moved here, and it's been almost a year now of being here, and I really love like the mix of creative energy and still the nature. And,
yeah. I feel like a lot of times people have this negative image of LA. They're like, oh, I'm so fake, but that has not been my experience. I'm sure those people exist, but I feel like there's so many people who are passionate about what they do, who want to work for their passion, who want to collaborate with other passionate people, and it's really motivating. I don't view it as a hustle. I view it as like a pursuit of like curiosity and wanting to share that with other people who are on the same page.
Yes, exactly. Yes, like there are so many pockets of different lives, like different versions of reality going on in the same city at once. And so looking at it as like a space where everyone comes with a dream, and that's so cool. And like being around people who are like, oh wow, this is your dream, how can I support you? Like how can I make this a reality? That's exactly been my experience as well, and I love it.
Yeah, I feel like you can align yourself with whatever you want to. Good or bad, for better or for worse, but if you're really adamant about staying focused on what you're after, I feel like the universe does provide different people. And like, let's talk about your podcast, for example, and the name of your podcast and what you're doing.
Yes, yeah. So it was exactly 1 year ago. It was February of last year. I was just on a drive out here, and it was kind of when it was raining a lot in LA. So it just got here. It was raining for like a month. And again, I was like, what? It doesn't rain here. Yeah. Why is it raining? But again, felt like this space and lesson to go within, go internal. And every time I've been forced to do that, it's been like, wow, all these breakthroughs. Things that I don't want to face.
Yeah.
But I take a second to slow down and face them. And then it leads to a breakthrough. And so it was something that I had been wanting to do for a while, but as like a past shy girl. Speaking on a podcast and like public speaking, but also sharing like vulnerable topics, things that are on the heart, fears, insecurities. That's scary. But then just was on this drive. It was like, I think this song came on or something, and in my bio it had been like live your most extraordinary life. This had been my theme and had been what I'd been sharing for so long, and it just like clicked for me, was that I can start to share like different people's stories of how they're living their most extraordinary lives, who aren't people who are like celebrities and actors and like top like accomplished people that like an everyday person who's trying to go for a dream can't relate to. Yeah. But maybe someone who's like one step ahead of them, who can share that like breakthrough moment of how they made the change. And so then I was like, oh my gosh, and I talked to Amanda, who was my roommate, and I was like, I have this idea, but I'm leaving LA in a week to go travel, like, and she was like, let's record an episode. I was like, oh my gosh. Okay, yeah, like exactly that energy of like people being so supportive of you and helping make your dreams a reality. And then publish the first episode, and we have 20 episodes now, and that's exactly the theme of it. Is it's like every single person's extraordinary life looks different. It's not like you have to travel the world and not have a lease and backpack every mountain.
Yeah.
That's just what I love, and changes throughout my life, but it's having the courage to like look within, figure out what it is for you, and then pursue that with all your heart is the intention of the podcast.
Amazing. Yeah, I feel like we're so aligned because sometimes people are like, why are you so positive? Like, I don't, that's just like who I am. Like, I really want to focus on spreading the stoke. I love to surf, and like that aspect of surf culture is like really ingrained in my spirit. And I also just like love connecting with people and like hearing their stories and taking tidbits out of that and like interweaving it into my life philosophy. And people are like, where do you get this stuff from? I'm like, oh, I can just share these stories with all of you. And everyone has their own path, their own learnings, their own life philosophy, and we can be each other's greatest teachers and like pushing to the next step and like unlocking that next level and like facing those fears that might be like keeping you small and like scared of doing something that it is very vulnerable, but maybe taking that step of vulnerability is going to push you on a path that feels more aligned with your authentic self.
Yes, exactly. Yes, and like that, the section you mentioned about surfing as well. So many life lessons from surfing.
I know. It's like the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, and sometimes I will literally be crying in the water. Like, I'm just gonna give up, and then someone will paddle over to me and like, I saw that wave you got, that was so amazing. Like, okay.
Yes, exactly. It's been like, I only started a year ago, and I feel like it's come into my life at this exact time to teach me to like surrender to the waves and to be present. Because like if you're distracted in the water, then you'll be like hit by a wave. And
Yes.
And also like if I'm way too much in my fear brain of like thinking and analyzing, then again I'll be like worse and not in my body, because it's so much of like a body to the ocean connection. Like you feel when the wave is coming instead of like analyzing and thinking and all of that.
Yeah, I feel like surfing, it is such a physical sport, but so much more of it than you ever could anticipate is mental. And there's so many things you have to work through, even from like pushing yourself physically. Like half of it is like, yeah, it feels bad, but if you like kind of can silent that like voice in your head, you can push yourself further than you think you can. Or just like going for a wave that you see and you're like, that's a monster. And then you start to slowly be like, oh, actually like that's not that bad. I can do this.
Yes, exactly. Like, and even with like that moment of like stepping up when it's your time, like when you're on a wave, like I've gone surfing with some of my guy friends who are like more bold than I am, and they're like, Mahna, you got it, like paddle into this wave. And I get there and I paddle, and if there's any hesitation, then you like fall off and you wipe out. Versus like you get there and you paddle and you have to commit, like time. It's like you gotta go. And like even teaching me that of like you can do all the prep and stay on the sidelines, but like when the time comes, like step up and take it and like have like that belief and that faith of like trying and going for it. And so like that moment has taught me so many lessons as well, where it's like the people around me believe in me also, and like that's why also your community is so important.
Oh my gosh.
And maybe you don't believe in yourself, but they're like, no, you got it. And just so many lessons.
I agree. I think there's so many aspects of surf culture that are like not ideal, but there's so much of it because you have to work so hard for it. It's such a challenge that like the reward is so great. So when people see, oh, you actually are committed to this, they want to help you and they're like invested in your growth, and it helps you be more invested, like reinvesting your dividends back into your growth as well. I feel like that starts to spread to other areas of your life because the view that you've had of yourself, maybe you're like, I can't surf big waves, or I'm not going to make this, or I'm not going to even try. You start to do it and you see, oh, if I can do it here, what other areas can I do this in?
Yes, exactly. Yes, and it really has like carried so much into the rest of my life as well. Like with Yeah, everything, not holding yourself back, staying on the sidelines instead of like getting out into the arena, like paddling out into the wave and trying.
Yeah, even just being more assertive. That was something, and I don't know if you struggle with this, but in the water, I tend to be like, oh, I'm not that good. Like, someone else is going to get that wave. Like, I don't want to be in their way. Like, I don't want to mess up. And people are like, no, just like go for the wave. Like, if you mess up, you mess up. Like, stop being so nice. You're actually not being nice. You're sabotaging your own attempts.
Yes.
Getting better.
Yeah. And I feel like it's been something that I've carried with me throughout so much of my life, from like being a female in like a computer science degree and then working at a tech consulting firm, and now like even like surfing is like a mostly male dominated sport, like especially here in California. I don't know why it's like all guys. Yeah, and there's so much of like we hold ourselves back as women. I'm like, oh no, he's like stronger, probably he can like paddle it to a better.
Yeah.
Why are we doing that?
Yeah, it's such a disservice to you. And also, like, since I have been putting myself in those, like, more uncomfortable situations with surfing, more female surfers have been reaching out to me. And like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like, let's go surf. And I'm like, this is what I've been wanting. I've been wanting a female surf community. And now it's just, like, coming because I've been, like, here's my silly little surf videos. I don't know what I'm doing. You can say about things about me if you want. I don't even care anymore. And people are like, oh, like, if you can do it, I can do it. And like, that's just it. Like, once you choose to believe that you can do something, it's like you're off to Mars, and like, who knows what else is outside of the solar system or the galaxy.
Yes, so truly, it's like once you set that as your like intention and then raise your energy to make it your reality. Like, I was just watching a documentary on black holes yesterday, and how so much out there is so unknown, but it's like so mystical and magical. And so like we're here in this human existence where so much is unknown, so why don't we choose to like align with that which feels most like our intuition? I really feel like a lot of what I share is like tap into what's on your heart and like what's calling to you, and raise your energy to make that your reality, because it's like so much of this existence is just like unknown. Like, no one actually knows what they're doing, and so you may as well like do what you love and see what's possible.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is like, you're going to be judged no matter what you do. There's going to be critics, there's going to be haters of anything that you do. You might as well just do what you want, because either way someone's going to find a bad thing to think or say. And it's like, ultimately, whose opinion really matters at the end of the day? It's your opinion of yourself, because that's what you get to like live and die with, is your view of you. And like, I always look at my life, and this might sound morbid, but I don't think about it this way. I look at my life from my deathbed. When I get to the end of my life and I look back and I examine everything that I've done, am I going to be proud of what I did, or am I going to live in regret that I didn't try to do the things that I wanted to? Because you will never know if you don't try.
Yes, exactly. That exact same thing motivates me as well. Because it's like, and also with thinking about the opinions of haters or people who might be judging you, like, I really look at it from their shoes. Like, what state does someone have to be in to be taking their time out of their life to judge you? And so it's like, now that I've visualized that, I'm like, wow, I really just feel bad for those people. And I want to like live my own life and compare me to like who I can be and like who I was. Because the rest of it really does not matter.
Yeah.
It's like you versus you.
Yeah, it's like that saying, run your own race. Like, you're competing with yourself at the end of the day, because if you're competing with other people, there's always someone who's going to be better than you at what you do, or like look nicer, or have a better house, or whatever. Like, the goalposts always move if you're comparing yourself to other people.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and so it's like, who was I yesterday? And like, I was a tech consultant who was too scared to pursue her passions, and now I'm like, okay, I'm courageously pursuing it. I'm not like 100,000,000% who I want to be, but I'm like still doing my best. And sometimes like around that time of month, I'll start to doubt myself again.
Yeah, always. Like, I had to give up. I don't know what I'm doing. This is so weird. Why did I have that idea?
Literally, like looking in the mirror, like, who does she think she is? Oh, but then it's like, no, these are just my hormones. Let me take space and time to like meditate and journal and reflect and like feel what I'm feeling, but now it'll pass, and then yeah, the springtime, like, ovulation comes, and I'm like, yes, like, I'm crushing it, I'm living it. I was learning about, like, female hormones, which I feel like also just was never taught to us. But
Never.
Yeah.
Like, am I losing my mind? Oh, no. Okay.
It's just my body going through a change, like the moon, like, it's so cool. Now I've, like, come to appreciate that also, that it's, this is some time to rest and go within. And then this is my, like, spring, summer energy where I'm like, wee,
Yeah.
let's talk to everyone and do everything.
There's so many things from, like, astrology or, like, you know, the energy of life that I feel like also relate to surfing, where it's like, you know, if you try to force something or you try to resist something, you're gonna get double what you don't want from that. And it's the same in surfing. Like, if you try to, like, fight, if you're, like, getting, you know, tumbled around underwater, like, if you fight it, like, you're wasting your oxygen, you're wasting your energy, it's going to be way worse. If you just surrender and, like, accept the flow, things start to come to you.
Yes, exactly. That's so true. Like, when you're in the whitewash, like, panicking makes it worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, spend all of your oxygen, you waste your energy, it makes it so much scarier. It's, like, harder to recover. If you just, like, are along for the ride and you're just like, this is what's happening right now, it's going to be over soon, just, like, sit back, then everything tends to kind of work itself out one way or another.
Yeah, exactly. Like, even sometimes where I have this whole list of things that I set out, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do all this today, but every part of my body is just like, we want to rest today. Like, we just want to take it easy. And I feel this guilt sometimes still for, like, resting, even though I know that it's, like, good for you and it's actually productive to rest. And I just, like, won't do it. But then there comes a day where I'm, like, just crushing through the list, like, doing all the things, and, like, my body is ready to take it, and, like, my energy state, like, everything is, like, ready, and that's like when you paddle and when you go and everything's so good, and it's, like, sort of feeling into what you're feeling, and, like, resting when you're low, and, like, jumping up when you're high, and like, surrendering to that, to the waves of life.
Yeah.
It's been a huge lesson.
Yeah. How, in your journey with travel photography, how have you incorporated that, like, surrender, or, like, incorporating play, or, like, you know, the lightness?
Yes, that's exactly the balance that I've been really trying to find in the last couple of years with, like, being my own boss and having, like, all the time to play or all the time to work. And it's like, I don't have a set itinerary or a set, like, day schedule of work from 12 to 5 and like 9 to 5, what I used to have.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how do I find the balance between play and work? And so I feel like last year was my year of doing mostly building my business, laying the foundation, like doing a lot more underground stuff that won't necessarily be seen. And now this year, I feel like I'm in this stage where I'm finding the balance, like some of the seeds that I planted last year of, like, making the podcast and signing with the management agency and hiring a virtual assistant, launching my course, like, those are starting to come to fruition, and I can create more of that, like, space and time for play and enjoyment, because that ultimately is what, like, I think it leads to a cycle, is letting myself, like, play and create and sort of have fun and connect with people leads into my work and, like, the impact and what I put out there into the world. So trying to find a balance, still working on it.
Yeah, it's, like, never ending. People, they see what you produce and they're like, wow, you're so lucky. And of course, luck does play some role in everyone's journey and success, but there's so much work that goes into it. It's like SEO, editing, writing, you know, recording, coordinating people is so difficult. It takes so much time. Like, people cancel, we need to reschedule. Then, you know, like the studio that we're in, they're doing construction, and, you know, there's all sorts of noise. But it's like, you know what? Like, you just have to, like, do what you can when you can, and accept that not everything is going to go as planned. You can't be perfect. It doesn't exist. Try to do what you can, but also, like, don't try to, like, white knuckle it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I've even kind of, like, developed the perspective in the past year if I would try so much to, I think a form of, like, imposter syndrome that I was facing was, like, it's called the genius form of it, where you try to learn and like do as much as you can, like that white knuckle it, like have so much of control over the situation that you don't actually step out into the arena and try. So I was in this phase of like trying to learn everything and like make sure everything's ready before I would actually launch anything. But now I think that like imperfection is actually more of a superpower than like perfection, because in this coming age of AI where like everything can be so perfect, people just want like real vulnerable human connection and like stories of impact and stories that are real. And so I'm really trying to like lean into that as much as possible. Like, how can I show up as honestly and vulnerably as possible, and sort of like surrender to the parts of me that were trying to, like my fear brain. I think it's all just like head versus heart of like my fear brain wants everything to be perfect out of like control and a defense mechanism, versus how can I lean into what my heart wants to share and be like real and authentic and connect with people in that way.
Yeah. Our mutual friend, Hardell, wonderful person. That's how we met. Can't stop saying good things about him because he's just a wonderful person. Yeah. I actually reached out to him, I don't know, let's say last month. Time is a weird concept. I was like, how do you do this? I am so busy. I don't know how to manage my time. Like, I am like starting to run on empty. And he was like, how much are you trying to do? And like, what are your core things that you need to get done? And then we like had this conversation, and really like there's a lot of self-reflection that needs to go into it. And I realized what I really need to do, and he helped me identify, is like, I need to be writing, I need to be recording, I need to be editing. The rest of the stuff fills in the gaps around that. If I don't get those things nailed down and prioritized, I'm going to be off balance, and I can try to do all these other things. But if I'm not doing that, like, I'm not getting anywhere, and I'm just spinning my tires. And so that was a really important message to receive, but also just in the reaching out, being like, I need help, I need guidance, I need someone to like tell me how to redirect, so I'm not just running 2 miles in the opposite direction. It's like, okay, like, you don't need to do it all by yourself.
Yes, yeah. That theme of reaching out and asking for help, community and collaboration, like, that's huge. That's awesome that you did that. And like with Harel too, like, the best person.
This is actually just an advertisement.
But honestly, that's been Ed Milet, he's one of my favorite speakers. He shares that like in anything that anyone does, everyone is saying like, help me in some way or another. Like, whether it's a conversation, whether it's reaching out to a friend, whether it's like your dog coming up and wanting to go for a walk, like every single person just wants to be like seen, heard, and understood, like connected to in some way. And so like reaching out to people on my journey when I was like, oh, I'm scared, do I do this full time? Like finding another creator who was aspiring and like thinking of leaving their job, like finding them, reaching out to them. And we would share with each other, like, you're not alone in this. I'm experiencing this as well. Let's share with each other. Let's do it together. Like, you're not alone. And that community collaboration, reaching out, it's again like rooted in vulnerability and like being scared of, are they going to judge us?
Yeah.
Are we going to judge ourselves?
Exactly.
But it helps so much. It's been so key on my journey.
Yeah, I feel like it's so easy to see, like, oh, this person is so much more successful than me. They've already got it figured out. But you can't compare yourself to someone who's been doing it for years, who's like put in that work to understand the foundations, who's already reached out for help, who's already done that. You can't compare yourself to that because you're just starting. You have to have grace and patience with yourself. And appreciate that like everyone starts from zero, and like that's where you're starting from, and like eventually you're going to become an expert in something, or you're going to master these skills, but you can't do it overnight. Overnight success doesn't exist.
No. And even if this mentor Ed Milet, he also shared that like if an overnight success does happen where people are like, oh, I just want to go viral, it's like a lot of the times you'll get that and then you'll self-sabotage because you haven't given yourself like the confidence or like put in the work yet to believe you're worthy of that. So they've studied people who've like won the lottery and then blow all the money because they don't believe there's someone who can have that much money, or like athletes who suddenly sign massive contracts and like make all this money will go bankrupt. And it's like, how? They have millions of dollars.
Yeah.
But it's because they haven't like put in or like laid the foundation yet of becoming someone who's like worthy of having $1 million. And so like hearing that perspective for me was, it really, really helped, because I was like, okay, I'm like in the grind of it, I'm laying the foundations, but it's giving me the confidence that like I'll get to where I want to go, just like step by step, piece by piece.
Yeah, that's so true. I heard this phrase, and I don't know where it came from, but it's like something along the lines of how you manage $10 is how you manage $1 million.
Ooh.
And I feel like that's so applicable to everything in life. It's like how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yeah.
And that has been like such a reflection for me. I'm like, oh, I'm cutting corners, or I'm being like such a dork about this. I haven't like got the brilliant basics ironed out. I need to slow down, recalibrate, focus, try to like lie the foundation properly and like evenly before trying to like pile on all these extras.
Yes, exactly. It's like exactly with that same theme. I was like watching the palm trees last year when it was the month and a half of like storm and rain and flood and wind, and like these palm trees were just like gracefully swaying, and I was like, how are they not falling over? They're so like long and thin, and like how are they hanging on? But it's because their root systems are so like intricate and deep, and like that they have that foundation. And that became a huge mirror and theme for me of like, don't be in such a rush, because like you'll grow and you'll get to where you want to go, but like you have to have that foundation so that when the winds and the storms do come and are like trying to shake you, you'll have this like rooted, deep-rooted system that you can fall back on, that can have your back.
Yeah. What are some things that you come back to when you know, hit roadblocks or challenges?
Yeah, so there's a quote by Alex Hormozy. I love quotes so much.
Same.
Quote by Alex Hormozy that he says, create an undeniable stack of proof that you are who you say you are. And so when you like have that self-doubt, you can have this like proof. So I've literally created like a Notion document of like times when I've like put in the work, or my certifications, or like how I'm a nice person. I want people to feel like, just written them all down. And so when I do go through those like waves of doubting myself, I have this like list literally that I'll look back on, because like our brains will try to mess with us sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'll just look at this and be like, no, wait, why am I doing that?
Yeah.
And so that's been a really helpful tool for me. And then also creating a list again of like things that I love to do. And just I found like having that sort of defined of like, I love to do yoga, I love to have like deep chats with friends, I love to eat like delicious, nutritious food, and like go surfing. Like having that sort of list for me handy, so that when I find myself in these states of like feeling so all over the place, or like I'm losing control, having just like a defined set. I feel like making it so simple.
Yeah.
Because there's so much distraction and like craziness in the world now, that like having a sort of simple set little lists I can look at has helped me so much.
Yeah, I think I've been intuitively doing that in a slightly different way. When people say nice things to me, I screenshot and have like a folder where it's like all these nice things, because I feel like your own inner critic gets so loud. You need to be like, hold up, wait, no, we're going to pull up all of these things that actually are real.
Yes.
And exist, and I'm going to reprogram my mind and like keep coming back to the core and the essence of who I am, and which has been also reflected back to me. And yeah, like yoga is, you know, there's the physical practice of yoga, there's breathing, there's like the energy work, there's the philosophy of yoga, which I did yoga teacher training in Bali, and that's how I met Harel.
Again.
Yeah, again, he is a sponsor of this video. Please sponsor us. But yeah, like coming to that life philosophy through a yoga perspective has been so powerful, to have for a foundation of like non-violence, of trust, of like non-stealing, all these things that like come up in different ways, and like coming back to that foundation as like showing up in the world, being of service to others. Because ultimately, I don't know, my perspective is like, it's about the people.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Even with like traveling, like my passion is traveling the world, but I've found that it's actually about like meeting people around the world.
Yeah. It really is.
It's always all about the people. Like getting to know people's souls and like what lights them up, what makes them excited, what they're scared about, and seeing that like we're all actually just the exact same.
Truly. Like you go to other countries and you're like, wow, this is so different from where I'm from. But underneath of everything, people are mostly the same. They're trying to start a family, have a community, provide for others, stay safe, be fed, like be healthy, you know, just like live a comfortable, happy, connected existence.
Yeah.
And once you travel the world, you see like, oh, like people just really want to be loved, to share love. And then you realize like, oh, I'm actually like never alone.
Yeah, exactly. To love and be loved. It's like, I feel like that's so LA. Just
Yeah, it is so LA, isn't it?
just love everybody.
And those citizens are like, of course, here, I'm sorry, California.
No, I never thought that I would become a Southern California surfer yoga girl who's telling everyone to love each other, but
We are here, it is happening.
it's all it is though. Like that's the core of everything. It's like everyone just wants to love and be loved, and like vibrating at that frequency of love, I think is the most like when I find myself in those states, like connecting to people, when I'm in like a flow state with surfing, doing yoga, traveling, like that's when I feel the most human and the most me. It's like being and serving and coming from a place of love. Like last week, it was one of the most random days. Like, in Hawaii, we were on the North Shore. It was me, Harel, and Harel. And
We should have like a counter, like how many times.
and Jaro and some of Jaro's friends were on the North Shore, and they're like, you want to go for adventure? We were like, yeah. And they pick us up in this white van, legit like a hippie van, like growing up. They told us like stay away from hippies and white vans, like from the Washington D.C. area. That's like the biggest like biggest flag. It's like stay away.
If they offer you candy, run.
So we took some chocolates, went into their van, and went for an adventure in the forest.
That's so amazing.
I literally can't make this stuff up.
You know,
We had like all these instruments and drums, and we were climbing trees and doing Om circles and like just like playing like kids again. It felt like we were in Neverland. And then that night we went out to see the Bob Marley movie, One Love.
Amazing.
And I felt again this like fight between my fear brain and my heart, and it was like a physical pain, like almost like a heartbreak type pain of like my head, I realized, was trying to stop my heart's sort of like a muscle, like when a muscle is like you're at the gym and you're like breaking the muscle so that it can regrow stronger. It felt like that was what was happening with my heart. Like I was around these hippies who were like the emulation of love, like they existed at the frequency of love. And we watched this Bob Marley movie that was like all about this like movement of love all around the world, and my head was like no, like stay closed, like it's safer, like, but my heart was like no, I want to crack open and expand. And I started crying to Jaro and Harel, and they were like, that's so beautiful, like thank you for sharing, like yes, we're proud of you. And I just like had to get it out and like lean on my friends, and yeah, and it showed me that like that really, it is just all love, like everyone from all different languages, like the Rastafarians.
Yes.
I'm just spreading love.
There's another quote. We love quotes here. Those who matter don't mind, and those who mind don't matter.
Yes.
And it's so true. And when you really start to embody that, it is like a vibrational thing. People were like, oh, you're vulnerable? No. And you're like, okay, that's not where my energy needs to go. I need to go where this is being received, because this is my authentic self. And like, if I am getting that feedback and closing down because someone else's limitations for how they can show up, then you're not being you. And you're robbing yourself and ultimately others of like experiencing someone who is open and like seeing that and also being able to do that for themselves.
Yes, exactly. Yes, like they were all existing from a place of love, and it was like this exact mirror for me of like, where am I holding back? Where am I not stepping into that love? And And it's like being around people like that enabled me to want to be like that as well. And like those who might, that I love that.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
I have to remind myself all the time because I feel like we're so as humans wired to want acceptance, and that like our subconscious mind tries to keep us safe so hard that it's like we need to be accepted, otherwise we're gonna be kicked out and we're gonna be on our own. But then you realize there's people all over who want to show up, who want to receive that, who want to hold space. And I don't know, I feel like I've done this so many times. I've witnessed other people so many times apologize for displaying emotions, especially being sentimental. And why?
Literally, yes. I like left where we were all hanging out and went and hid behind a tree and started crying. And they called me. They were like, "Where are you?" I felt like I had to hide. Like that was my first instinct. Yeah. Like,
for why?
Like this.
This human experience?
Yes.
Just the full range of emotion. That's being human.
Exactly. Yeah. They were like, "No, this is beautiful. Like, thank you for expressing your like authentic, vulnerable self." And I was like, "Wow, like, thank you."
When you step into situations like that, and it's so hard, but when you do, you start to realize that there are people who want to receive the fullness of you, even in those like moments of like messy emotions.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So thank you.
Yeah.
Harel and Jarl.
We definitely are starting a culture. No, actually, now you're painting on it. Oh, that's amazing. So let's talk about some of the trips that you've been going on recently. You went to New Zealand, for example, and Australia. What other, let's talk about some of the travel you've been doing.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly that. New Zealand and Australia. New Zealand was actually going back to where I got engaged in 2020, so that's another piece of my journey. It's a whole other story as well, but it was basically like, there were a lot of past emotions for me there with like a past version of me and past relationship. And so the intention with that trip was to go back, connect with like different female friendships. And then it just so happened that like a bunch of my favorite people were there at the same time. And I got to create all these new memories and also like cry and feel and like adventure around. And then went over to Australia. It's mostly been like just my intuition of like guiding. And then it's sort of trying to not force where I'll go or what will happen. It's the first time in my life where there's no like set, this is what your path is going to look like. And it could be terrifying, but I look at it as like exciting, and I created my life to be like that in this chapter. And so up next week, I'm going to Finland, Sweden, and Norway for the Northern Lights.
Oh.
So fingers crossed. It's my mom's 60th birthday, and her dream is to see the Northern Lights. So hopefully we'll see it.
That's so awesome. That's like a peak memory.
Yeah, it's like she's been the most supportive person for me on my journey. She's like that one person that like, when I was finally like, okay, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna quit, I'm gonna go for it, she's like, I'll support you, I'll be here to help you. Like, she's been such like a blessing for me. And yeah, and so it feels like so full circle of trying to like bring her along with me anytime I can. And then going to Nepal for like a trekking, backpacking little adventure.
So awesome. When are you going to Nepal?
In late March for Holi, actually, which is their like biggest festival of the year, like the celebration of colors. And it's like a part of the world that I've never been to, like India, Nepal, like that whole area. And I feel called finally to go there and like uncover what's around there.
So awesome.
Thank you.
Ooh, lots of exciting stuff coming up. You also, so you mentioned that you have courses.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So my course is called Your Extraordinary Life, and it's a 10-step framework to live courageously in alignment with your dreams. So it's basically my journey, but like in a course, like in a nutshell of uncovering what your limiting beliefs are, where you're holding yourself back. And then I also have a personal branding template of how I sort of defined my creator business, and for anyone who has sort of that like creative spark in them, like how to get it onto paper and start to take those steps to make it a reality. And we also have a WhatsApp community where we share, like, build community with people weekly, and then group coaching every month. And I'm finishing my Jay Shetty life coaching certification.
Ooh.
The exam is on Monday.
Oh
and
my
it's been
God.
like a year of, like, so there have been a lot of things I've been working on at once. And I'm really excited to hopefully, like, finally be a certified life coach as well, which helps my imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Like, I can do this, I can help people and step up, and because that's all I genuinely want to do is, like, connect with people and help people find their light and, like, go on and share that with the world. So, yeah.
This is such a random question, but do you know anything about human design?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what
I'm a
human
manifesting generator.
So am I.
No way.
Yeah. I had a feeling. Like, the sound so familiar. Like, there's, like, different, like, subsets of that, but mine is a fire starter. Like, that's what it's on, is fire. And ironically, I started building community in San Diego, where I live, by doing bonfires in Ocean Beach, where I live. And so when I found that out, I was like, duh.
Whoa.
This makes so much sense. Like, I love lighting a fire inside of someone. I also love lighting a fire. I'm not an arsonist. I swear. On the beach, it's safe. And just, like, gathering people, because I love meeting people, but it's like, you can't possibly hang out with everyone that you like. So why don't they just hang out with each other?
Yes! You are so good at that. Like, I feel like this has been one of my favorite podcast interviews, because I feel like I've been so, like, empowered to, like, share my story so, like, authentically.
Yay.
And yeah, when I found out about human design as well, it was like, as I was in the midst of, like, the transition of travel creator to also sharing mindset, and someone who had the same birthday as me was like, have you looked into your human design? And it said the purpose of my life is to share my ideas and ideals, even if I experience, like, self-judgment. And I was like, wow, that's literally exactly what I'm doing. And it was like, you have the potential to be, like, a prophet or a speaker, or you can play it small and not do that. And I was like, what?
How dare you?
I'm gonna step up.
That's so awesome.
It was crazy, because I was like, that's exactly what I'm doing, but I didn't even, like, realize it.
Yeah, it's crazy how things find their way into your life. Sometimes directly, sometimes through a back door, sometimes just someone, like, yelling something out a car window at, you know, you walking down the street, and you're like, oh wait. Yes.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I had a feeling that we have a connection.
Just from, like, when we met that first day through.
You guessed it, Harela. Thank you so much.
I was like, yes, I love her energy.
Yeah. It just makes sense. You know what? When it makes sense, you gotta go with it.
Yeah. I would love to come to one of the fire chats.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Someone was just reiterating to me that we need to start it up, and I've been waiting for daylight savings time.
Oh, yeah.
Because it just gets dark so early,
No.
and I feel like such a spoiled little baby in California, because everyone else is, like, freezing, and it's like 60 degrees. I'm like, it's so cold, it's so dark. I don't know how I'm gonna make it.
That's true. No, I was completely relating though.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 5:30 and, like, 60 degrees does feel colder.
Yeah. I don't know why, but it was, like, almost like going to Finland, you're gonna be, like, reset, and you're gonna come back and you're like, it's a sauna.
That's true. It's like 1 degree there.
Yeah. That's what we need to do. We need, like, the immersion therapy.
Yeah.
Dude, oh my god, and it's actually so great. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Exactly. But I think it's almost because it, like, looks the exact same outside. So I'm like, oh, I should be wearing the same clothes that I wear the other times, but it's just, like, colder.
Oh, yeah. Not possible. I feel like it's deceiving too, because a lot of the stuff that you see about Southern California is, like, people in, like, shorts and tank tops out in the sun on the boardwalk. And it's like, I don't know. I feel like the seasons start later here. Like, summer is, like, September.
Yeah.
And everyone's, like, already had their summer. Like, we're just starting ours.
Exactly.
It's confusing. You definitely have to layer. It's like, if you get into the shadows, then to the shade, woo!
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Bust out that parka.
Exactly. Like, just before this, I was sitting in the sun and I was like, no, I'm gonna sweat. Let me go into the shade. And I was like, brr.
Yeah, we are truly blessed here.
Wow. We are. I love it.
So it is about that time. We're going to wrap up. So let's talk about inspiration. What are some things that are inspiring you with your photography, with your travel, with your courses, and, you know, everything that you have kind of orbiting around you?
Yeah, so I've been really inspired by nature right now and also exploring, and I don't know if we're allowed to talk about this, but like mushrooms.
Yeah.
Exploring sort of like that side, like the mycelium network and everything for the first time, and just like how it's sort of awakened my connection to nature and also like myself and people around me, like just the whole universe. I've been learning so many lessons. Like each journey I'm just like journaling like 10 pages and feeling so inspired and so just like I feel like another light has gone off in my like third eye brain.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, just seeing everything with a different lens and a different light. And it's something that I had some resistance towards coming from the DC area where things like that are so like taboo, but like drinking is totally fine.
Yeah, you could poison yourself.
Yeah.
You can't get in touch with yourself.
Literally, yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so, like, opening my perspective to that, and also this year I'm looking forward to just exploring more of that balance between like travel and travel content creation and working with brands that are really aligned with sort of the vision that I want to share, and also like continuing to foster and build the community in your extraordinary life.
Awesome.
Thank you.
If you had any advice for someone who wants to do travel photography or just travel, maybe, you know, get rid of their leaves and travel the world, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, so I would say for someone who wants to do travel photography, and like at least for what I could want to hear when I was getting started, was I thought the space was so saturated and there were so many people already doing it, and I was like, well, is there even room for me? But what I've found is that like your story and your way of sharing it will resonate with someone in a way that someone else's story can't. Mm-hmm. And so like stepping up for that person, and it can even be like a past version of yourself. Mm-hmm. And then also for like living your life or going for what's on your heart, I would say that that example you shared earlier of like really imagining yourself on your deathbed, like you're laying there and all your life, all your time, energy, everything has gone by, like what feels like it's pulling at you from your heart? Is it like being a singer? Is it traveling to like a country in Europe? Is it like going for this bucket list trek? Like whatever you envision when you do that like meditation or exercise is like, I think what you should go for right now. And so that's something that motivates me a lot, is I have this peak energy and youth and time right now. And I think things like jobs and everything, like they will come back. I think there's a balance between like putting in the work and having that security, but also knowing that when I quit my corporate job, I was like, that corporate job will always be there. That is like privilege, and there's so I like that you said that as well. There is so much of that in it, but also knowing that like I could also go back to school or get another certification and go back to the corporate job, but just like giving yourself that chance to go for it and live fully now, because you never know unless you try. As cheesy as it sounds, it's like
true. It's
yeah,
so true.
that's all it is. It's like following your heart.
You gotta take that trip, try that course, get the camera out, whatever it is, go free dive, go surf, try a handstand, and just see what happens.
Yes, exactly. Yes, and being around spaces where there are like motivated people who are so passionate and doing what they love, like going to that event where we met, like being in spaces where people are just like going for things will motivate you to be like, oh wait, it's like a direct reflection onto yourself of like, these people are doing it, do I like put myself back and just like hide under the table, or do I be like, oh wait, they're doing it, so I'm gonna join in, I'm gonna do it as well? And like being in those spaces has helped me so much. So yeah.
Okay, so my last question for you. When you're going on a trip and you're going to the airport, who is your ride to the airport?
Oh. Well, I've been having this little like twin flame journey right now that's been like funny, where he pops up on like every single trip that I go on, and we're just like teaching each other all these lessons. So that's been quite funny with like, he knows who he is.
Amazing.
And then also Uber.
Try to true.
I'll put people through the joys of LA.
LAX. It is a pain. That's why you know someone who really loves you. They'll get you at LAX. That's the trick test.
I saw this TikTok, and like the people in the comments were like, my dad won't even pick me up at LAX.
I feel that though. I one time had to pick someone up from LAX and their bags got lost, and we had to go back 2 more times.
Oh, geez.
I'm like, you better know how much I love you after this.
Wow. Oh
Sacrifice.
my gosh. That's a lot of love.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me. This was lovely.
Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome. This is such a fun conversation.
Yeah. Love it.
Thank-
Aww.